deal. I'm Jaws on the beat, I got a flow that kills. Do my ting with a few G's, Lauren Hill.
What's up guys, it's Unders, and in today's video, I'm gonna show you 5 different ways that can help you get your beats mixed down a little bit better, or just help you in general with your mix downs. And we're gonna do it all inside Logic, but a lot of the theory and what you can do can apply to any DAW you're working in. There's just some methods to go through that if you consistently do them, the thing you're trying to achieve will generally have a better result. So what I've done today is made a beat in Logic, and it's completely unmixed, and we're gonna do these things to it, and hopefully we'll have something halfway decent towards the end, right? So let's dive into Logic.
And a big thanks to the channel sponsor, Distrokid. Distrokid is a music distribution service and the best way to get your music out to all of the modern streaming services fast, efficiently, and within an independent artist's budget. Check out the description below for a discount today.
All right, so let's just loop over like a main section of this, shall we? When we're working in the likes of Logic and we use a lot of the stock sounds, it will automatically set our levels and things like this. And it's not too bad as it is, but I want a default mixer. I want everything to be flat by default. So what we're going to do, we're just going to hold Option and just reset all of these, or we can actually hold Shift and select 2 tracks and then reset them all at once like that. Now, the reason I've done this, when I come to mix, I only want to make small adjustments on the mixer. I actually want to have everything kind of preset. So what we're going to do here is like a start of gain staging. Like gain staging is usually when you're recording, you're making sure everything is set at the right levels for recording, you're not going to clip, that sort of thing. We can do something similar in here. We can have it so our tracks kind of already balanced before we actually go to do that final mix balance stage. So what we're going to do is basically have a look at our levels and then listen to overall what's going on, and then track by track adjust it slightly so we've got the right kind of thing. Now, if something's bassy, we're generally going to want that to be quite loud in the mix, and we don't want to adjust it too much with the faders, so we want that to have a bit of level. Now, if it's something like an effect, like the vinyl crackle at the top here, for example, well, we're going to want that to be quite down in the mix, and we're not going to need to have loads of level changes. So that's what we're going to look at. So it'd be fair to say that this kick right here, look, it's pretty loud. We've got a bit of headroom, but not very much. So what we'd probably do is want to bring that down a little bit in level overall. Now, it's an audio track, so in this case, we're going to use the inspector. Just press I and it'll pop up like so. What we're going to do is just use the gain control on here. We've got to make sure everything's selected. So, you know, in this case, when we select the track, it just selects our loop. It's already gained down by -3.3. We're just going to take it a little bit further. We want to have some more headroom. So we're just going to take it down to, say, -6. That's probably going to be a slightly better level for us, right? It's peaking now at sort of -7.3. We want to have headroom at the end. Now, if it was an instrument, say we've got this little afterthought lead here a little bit later on. We could do that slightly different. Now, this is pretty loud in the mix, even though it is clipping at like -15 or so. Now, I think we're probably going to have to take that down quite a bit. So what we'll do in this case, we'll open up the instrument and we can just gain it down in here slightly. And it's already gained quite a bit back, but we're just going to bring that back to, say, -22, give ourselves a little bit of headroom, which means later on we won't have to bring the fader like right down here to get it where we want. We'll just be able to adjust it just a touch. So what you do, you go through your whole track and just, you're not getting a precise balance, just a rough balance of all those things with the mixer flat. So when you press play on the track, you already sound like it's quite a balanced track. Right, so tip number 2 is grouping things up and using groups and buses. And I will often group things in a bus and then work back from that. So let me show you how to do that. The way to group things into a bus is to select your channel. So I'm going to take the right here, which is right at the top, all of the other drums and send them all into one group. So we're going to go right the way down to the one here that says coffee, which is our percussion. So we're going to loop all of those. And if we just hit solo, make sure we've just got all drums in here. We've been organized on the track, so it should be. Cool, so we now know that's all drums. Now over on the mixer, where it says stereo out here, I'm going to click on any one of them once they're all selected like this. And we can send them to a bus. I'm going to send them to bus 10. And that's going to make a new channel on the mixer. It's called it aux 9 for us. And we can see B10 at the top. So it's going from bus 10. We can now just name this drums. Now, because all of the drums I've used are already orange, what we could do is, while we've got the track highlighted, just do Option and C, and we could just make that orange, and we've now got a drums bus. So now, whenever we solo that bus, it's just got all the drums in for us. And I'll group up all instruments in this kind of manner. So I'm playing something back. I can grab just the drums. I can grab just the strings, really simply. However, this also allows us to work on the buses as well and check them out as a whole of all the instruments we've got layered. For tip number 3, we're going to look at doing a sweep EQ on our mix buses. So if we've got any kind of mass things that are laying up, we correct them in mass rather than going to each individual channel. We make sure everything sounds good together first, then we can fix the individual parts. So let's take these strings as an example. We're just going to solo our strings bus. I'm just going to put an EQ on it up here, just a single click. In isolation, you might not know what's good and what's bad and how you want something to particularly sound. Now, thinking about these strings, we've got a low string and we can see it's low fundamental around here. So the lowest note it plays, we know is around 100. That means we can definitely take out any low end to sort of like the 80 range quite comfortably, knowing it's not going to affect anything else with the sound. And we could even do quite a steep roll off like this. This means something like the kick drum, which has got a similar space and uses some of the low end here, will never conflict with those strings. That's one little problem fixed. Now I'm going to show you a little technique that I do, which is just called a sweep. And we're going to make a narrow band. So we can just boost up any of the bell bands like this. Use your mouse wheel just to narrow it down a little bit. Don't want it too narrow. It always sounds unnatural, but narrow it a little bit. What we're going to do is play and just sweep through the sound. Now, if something sticks out and sounds really unpleasant, we're going to look at just correcting that. If something sounds much better as well, we can maybe put a boost in that area. Yeah, so here, so around 3K, we've got a pretty harsh whistling sound. Now we are boosting this a huge amount. You have to think, if the track was being played back in something like a nightclub, it's going to be played back at high volume. That horrible frequency boost we get in there, someone's going to be listening to that in context really loud. That's going to be a horrible reflective sound. So we might just want to control that a bit. We'll just A and B it. Make sure we're not losing anything massively. And that works. So we do the sweep again. Now on the flip side, but just above 1K here, it's actually quite a nice boost. It's bringing up some nice frequencies. Sort of here. Now if we're going to do a boost, I'd have it really gentle and I'd flatten it out quite a bit. And look at something like that. And just again, A, B. Checking context as well. I'm just going to give the sweep one last go, having a look around this area here. Okay, so that right there, just on that particular note. So if we just loop this last section here where that popped up. Yeah, that note right there. So we want to just really be quite narrow. Take that out. It's not particularly nice frequency just there. That's the simple process, doing it on the buses. Now, we've corrected everything together, so it sounds good all in one. We could now go to the individual channels and do the same process, but start with the collective as a whole first. Okay, so my third one is using reverb to create an individual space for a sound. I'm going to use it as the same example on the little kind of chorus bit here, where we've got this little bit of piano playing just at the top section here. All right, so this is it. Now it's sort of got its own kind of natural reverb from the sample, but I'm going to send this to a reverb channel just to give it its own space in this particular part of the track. I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to select the track and we're going to use one of the buses just down here. Now we can send it to some reverbs we've already got, and we could use the large room, for example, but I'm going to create a new one just to show you how we would do it. So I'll send it over to bus 20. So we've got some nice separation there. We can see what we're doing. I'm going to send the full signal over by just holding Option and clicking. And then over here on bus 20, named aux 11 for us, we'll call it piano rooms. We've got an idea of the name. And what I'll do, I'll try and match the color roughly as well to the piano. I think we use like a purple there. Okay, and we'll put the reverb plugin on here as well. We'll use Chrome Reverb. I use that quite a lot. So now we're going to have something like this. That gives it a lot of its own space. Now in terms of the room, you should find the concert hall or chamber quite nice on here, and I'm just going to reset these. I'm going to take the low end away like we did when we were EQing it. Now that's quite nice. Now pre-delay wise, I'm going to sync this to the track. And I'm going to do the same for decay and have it so it syncs to 1/4. So it's in beat with the track. I want to give it loads of distance as well, loads and loads of space. So now let's check this out in context. It's got loads and loads of space. Even though we've sent a huge amount of signal to it, it doesn't seem overly out of place. However, in the rest of the track, it's clearly far too much. So we're going to control it. And the way we're going to do that is with some automation. So only where it's got this really spacious time to have all this extra reverb does it ever happen. So the way to do that, we've got piano chops selected here. I'm just going to press A to bring up the automation lanes and take this down to main. And here we've got send one piano room. So we're going to choose absolute, and that's going to give us the option to automate that piano send. So we're going to just change our second tool from the marquee to the pencil, easier to draw in. So I'm just going to do 2 points here at the start, and we can have it so it's almost that full amount going out. I'm just going to zoom in and put another point just before it happens and just bring that right down. And we'll have to adjust the level to decide whereabouts we want that to be, or if we want any reverb in there at all. So what we'll do now is just listen to it beforehand and listen to it when it comes in. And there you go, that gives it loads of extra space when it comes in, and just fills it out and gives it its own sense of space, which is really useful. Don't forget that you need to recreate it again after the chorus has happened, and you would also need to bring it back in again later when it reoccurs. That's where we can use reverb to create our own sense of space and change. So we've got the same sound, the mix sounds the same, but you suddenly just get this feeling of the piano kind of overwhelming when there's the space for it there. It's just a really nice mix tip. You can do the same thing with snare. So if you've got like the same snare drum, but you want it to feel bigger and more open on, say, the hook, just automate it so it pushes more into that reverb space and you get that kind of effect. All of these things that I've just done, apply them across the beat and effectively mix the whole thing down, and then we'll just have a look at the end. Okay, so I've taken the time to basically do those methodologies to the track and get it to a state it's at. Remember, if you wanted to really break it down and see how I've done everything, you can download the track from the link below. But let's just have a little listen through it now, shall we? I have to say, yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that's now sounding. And like I say, I've just used those 4 main things that I showed you, as well as a little bit of compression here and there, especially on the drums bus compressor, just helping bring all the drums together. Like I say, you want to break down that, download the project, and you'll be able to see exactly how we've done that. As well, there's nothing on the master. We're not clipping our loudest point, minus 1.5 dB, so we've got plenty of room there, which is also great. And as I mentioned with gain staging, I've made some very minor adjustments. I think the largest amount I've pulled down is these backing strings here, that are minus 6.3 for this section here. I've not had to pull any faders miles down because we kind of gain stage it from the offset and did it with gain options on audio and within the instruments themselves. So yeah, all in all, those are the main techniques really to getting everything done, making the EQ choices with the sweeping EQ, grouping things up, working from the groups backwards, and that's it really.